We'll amend it here. All right, Mayor, would you please come to order? And if everyone please, again, check your phones. I think mine's on, so let me turn it off. All right, everything's off. If everyone please join us in a word of prayer, and we'll get started. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we're so thankful once again to come to you to ask your guidance as we deliberate on these education bills. Dear Father, it's so important because they affect the lives of so many young people in this state. Help us to always do what's right, and give us the wisdom to do what's right and the courage to do what's right. We ask you to bless us, lead, and guide, and direct us for these things in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right, we'll go ahead then. And do we have any visitors today? That's the first thing. That never been here before. Stand up. If you've never been here before, Steve, you've been here too much. All right, no visitors, no teachers or anything. We'd like to recognize you. I see a lady back in the back just dying. Stand up and tell us who you are. Well, we're glad to have you here today and hope you learn a lot from us. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. We'll the first bill on the agenda. Now, a couple of you told me you just got to get out to another meeting, and I know there's several other meetings going on that are a lot more interesting than this one, so feel comfortable to go there. But the first one we're going to take up is Representative Oliver. If you'll come up and present your bill. This came out of academic achievement. So, David, what's your recommendation on this one?
Mr. Chairman, our recommendation from the subcommittee was a due pass, but it was a due pass as amended. And unfortunately, we do not have that LC number, and so therefore we are going to be considering the bill in its original form, and we will take up the amendment in this full
committee and do it. Okay, Representative.
For your courtesy, and thank you to Subcommittee Chairman Casas. House Bill 821 was passed by this committee previously. In fact, was passed both bodies and came to Governor Sonny Perdue's desk, who vetoed it based on an amendment that was not related to the substance of the bill put on by the Senate. House Bill 821 comes out of the work of the DeKalb County District Attorney's Office that has had an initiative in relation to truancy enforcement, and specifically he has developed, and y'all heard him in length in past sessions of this committee, Robert James, District Attorney Robert James, adding provisions to the truancy statute which would give some specific definitions, 15 days specifically that a parent has to enroll a child, and that a school system after 30 days of unexcused absence must report possible truancy evaluation to law enforcement. The amendment that the committee in the past passed and passed yesterday was to delete on lines 92 and 93 on page 3 the sentence, any person required to make a report who willfully fails to do so shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. In past years we've taken that provision out, and was taken out yesterday in committee. The one sentence that begins with any person on 92 and ends on 93 with the period after the word misdemeanor.
Very good.
I ask the committee to consider removing that. Representative Benton also has a bill in relation to truancy statute, and he and I have talked, and we talked in the subcommittee about the different provisions, and we're working together on that and coordinating with each other. Short version, Mr. Chairman, is that this bill gives some technical definitions to obligations of the parent specifically and to the school system, and allows on those rare occasions, but there are some occasions, for law enforcement to step in to enforce a truancy law when a parent is willfully, after certified notice and after notice, is failing to send his or her child to school. I'm happy to answer questions.
Isn't it true that you had this last year and it got to rules, didn't it? Made it to rules?
It went through both the House and the Senate and all the way to the governor's desk.
That's what I thought, and it was
vetoed by Governor Perdue, so it was 2 years ago.
Right, that's what I thought.
Based on a homeschooling amendment that didn't relate to the bill that got put on in the Senate.
Yeah, that was done in the Senate.
Yes, sir. We didn't mess it up.
That's what I thought. So we've dealt with this for about 3 years now and had a lot of testimony in most of this committee. All right, are there any questions from the committee? Any questions? All right. In order to take the amendment, I've got to have a motion. Do we have a question?
I'm ready to move to pass.
Oh, I've got a motion to do pass. Do I have a second?
As amended.
As amended. That's what I'm saying. But we was going to take the amendment. So you want to give the amendment. Betsy is not here today, is she? So Abby, if you'll be sure that you take, you and Courtney, be sure I'll get this. So the amendment then, if I'm not mistaken, the bill will read just as it did except for line 92, we're taking out any person required to make a report pursuant to this paragraph who knowingly and willfully fails to do so shall be guilty of a misdemeanor. That's coming out. Is that correct? So your motion is to do pass as amended that way. And that's the way it is. Do I have a second? Any questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. And you got that amendment, so we'll take that and that we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
you, gentlemen.
Next, Mr. Robert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring House Bill 836 to you today.
Now let's see, we have that in our folder, 836. Let's be sure we got that one, 836. Representative J. Roberts. Let's see, 836. Does everyone have it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Is this yours? Yeah.
Unamended.
All right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Most of you may be aware, but several years ago we put into place an oversight committee of the legislature to look at the Georgia High School Association, to have dialogue and discussion with them. That committee actually sunset last year. This bill basically, in essence, just puts it back in. I've had the opportunity over the summer. I worked on an ad hoc committee with the Georgia High School Association and trying to come up with a lot of solutions to some of the problems that they were having. There was a very good working dialogue there. We had an opportunity to sit down and have a lot of discussions to a lot of problems that have come up. And I believe that this is just another opportunity for us to have that type of discussion and dialogue with them as well. There's been a lot of complaints here lately about some of the things that have taken place there, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you agree or disagree with the actions that they took. I do believe that having this in place will have us have that dialogue. I will say this, Dr. Swearinger has always been good in the last several months and all, in the last year or so, whenever I've had conversations with him, he's always returned my phone calls, but there's probably no other organization in this state that impacts our kids, especially those competing in sports, more so than the Georgia High School Association. So for us to be able to have this open dialogue and to be able to have a platform by which for us to do it, I thought I would bring back this piece of legislation. Most of you may know that Representative Peake as well had a piece of legislation that was pretty much almost identical to this, and he and I talked, and we discussed about moving forward with me carrying this piece of legislation instead of his. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to answer any questions anybody might have.
This came out of the subcommittee chaired by Representative Setzler. He could not be here. This is innovative subcommittee on innovations, and he could not be here, but he said it came out by a vote of 2-1, I think he said it was.
That's correct. And
with one dissenting vote, and I understand that we have a member of the committee that wants to speak to it, so Representative, let's see, it's 25, Representative Benton.
Chairman Roberts.
Yes, sir.
A couple of questions, please. These are questions for the whole committee can hear that I ask in the subcommittee. Georgia High School Association is a private organization, correct?
Absolutely.
And the high school does not have to belong to it, correct?
They do not have to belong to it, Chairman Benton, unless the fact that if you want to compete in sports, if you're a public school and you want to participate in sports in the state, you have to belong to it.
Okay. But it is a private organization.
It is a private organization.
Do you know of any other private organizations that we have a legislative oversight committee for?
No, not at this time, I don't.
Other than you just wanting some oversight, is there any other reason for this bill? I know there's been some controversy about the classifications in private schools and so forth, but private schools have their own association they can belong to, correct?
They do.
And they can voluntarily join Georgia High School Association, correct?
They can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I have another question, number 23. That is, Representative Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Chairman Roberts. Now, you said this was a committee we had formed. How long has this committee been in existence now?
Chairman Maxwell, I'm not quite sure. It was put into place. Most of you may know Justin Anderson, who actually was a senior at the University of Georgia this past year. Was actually from Irwin County. When his senior year, he actually was asked to go compete in the Georgia, the U.S. Army All-Star game. At the time, Georgia High School Association did not recognize that all-star game. So when he was invited to go attend it, which was an honor for young men all across the United States, he was one of the select few, he lost his eligibility at the time because the Georgia High School Association did not recognize it. We introduced a piece of legislation that year that we ended up passing at the time, and they went back and reinstated him the last part of his senior year. This young man just graduated from the University of Georgia and is now probably going to be playing on Sundays in the NFL. Long story short, you asked me the question. The reason I can remember that, he was a 6-year senior this year. He was redshirted and then had a medical redshirt. So roughly 6 years ago, to answer that question, was when we put it in place. May have been 5 years ago, but somewhere about then.
Yeah.
I guess my other question is, there's no sunset date that I see in here that we're changing a sunset date. Are we going to put a sunset date back in here for this committee? I thought we were trying to sunset all these little things, keep them for a while, and then verify the need to keep them after a period of years.
There is not a sunset date in here, Chairman Maxwell, and it would be fine if y'all so choose to put one in it. I would be okay with that. But it is an oversight committee. I think that is not going to be one that's going to be meeting all the time. I think that it is one that would meet on occasion to have that dialogue and discussion. Probably a lot of you have had phone calls about it, about the association from time to time. I know I have. But this would be a situation where it wouldn't be on a monthly basis or whatever, but just give us that avenue by which for us to sit down and have that discussion. So if you choose to put it in there, I wouldn't object to it.
One more question, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Now, is the biggest problem we're trying to correct with this right here is the problem between the Georgia High School Athletic Association and public schools and private schools that want to get in and compete, because they compete. A lot of these private schools probably draw people statewide, and the high schools have to bring them in from district. Is that part of the problem we're trying to look at in this stuff, or?
Chairman Maxwell, you hit on a point that has been discussed a lot this past summer in the ad hoc committee that was formed, where we did have public and private schools coming in and sitting down for the discussion and the dialogue. To say that this is all about that, to me, is not the case, because there are a lot of other issues that come up from time to time out there. It's also, I think, a good opportunity for Georgia High School Association to come in and sit down in front of the legislators that may be on this committee or any that wants to come in and talk about the good things that they do. They do a lot of good things as well. It's just not negative. So, and I think that would help them as well. But
let me throw something. You're talking about this 6-7 years ago, but I remember this young man, if I'm not mistaken, Representative Burkhalter introduced that bill. Is that the one talking?
No, actually it was myself and Representative Chuck Martin. And
y'all did have, and you had the committee. Did they come to the table, or did we actually form the committee?
We actually formed the committee that year.
Okay, I thought so. But it sunset.
It did.
That's what I thought. All right, just for that. All right, good. All right, I have 21, 1, and 26. 21, that's Representative Cassis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Roberts, I understand that probably next to Sunday morning church, Friday night football, and my goodness, high school sports is probably a very sacred thing to Georgians, and I understand how important this is. I've been here and heard the debates with Representative Burkhalter at the time when they were presenting something like this. And I share Representative Benton's consternation that we're creating a government oversight committee to review or oversee the operations of a private, we could call it a semi-private association. I understand that this is dealing with high school, public school sports, but it's tough to create something like this, to give oversight to something as private as this. I mean, in the discussions, have you thought about maybe just going in and telling the high school association that, cease and desist, and we're going to create a Georgia high school athletic association that is now going to be codified, and then this committee will have oversight like we have oversight over all education in Georgia. I just think that we're setting a precedent. Can you just
Sure,
speak to
I'll be
this?
glad to address it. One, this gives us no oversight over them. I mean, they can choose not to do anything we ask them to do. This doesn't give us power over them at the end of the day for us to make policy. They still will be the governing body. They still will set policy. And we still at any time could pass legislation that affected them. This is not by any way, shape, form, or fashion a means by which to micromanage that association. I do not want to do that, nor do I think anybody else wants to do that. There are actually, you brought up starting another organization. There are actually, at this time, there is those that are contemplating starting another organization. In all honesty, in fact, there was a group that met in November. There was actually at the time 34 schools present that looked at starting another one, and then they ended up in January talking about, and to be honest with you, they got Georgia High School Association's attention at that point. They went back and changed some things, and it went forward, but there were actually more than that looking at starting that organization then as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just need some help with the legislative history of all this.
Sure.
I vaguely remember getting this enacted first in 2006. Was the year the code section happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it included another paragraph. What was in that other paragraph? 20-2- I mean, is this exactly what that law was or not?
The difference is in this, one is the other mandated that the chairman of the House and Senate education committees were on it. This one, if they want to be on it, if the chairman wants to, I'm sure the speaker will put him on there. This doesn't make it mandatory that they have to be on there. The other thing was this actually says Lieutenant Governor for the appointees that's in there, and I think that the other one may have had assignments committee or whatever it was in there, but other than that, it's my understanding it didn't change, but
there is this extra paragraph that was there. Okay. It was 20-2-2100 through 2105, and this only gets me to the 4. So I'm just curious about what that other section was.
That may have been the sunset section, may have been that 5.
But then I'm curious about the sunset, because this says that on December 31st of 2010, HB 1316 was enacted, which repealed this. So it appears that it was repealed with another law and not a sunset provision. So I'd like to sort of figure out this legislative history a little bit more and what we did in 2010 to affirmatively choose to repeal this section.
I think that may have been called up in another legislation. Huh?
Excuse me, when the original bill, which was Representative Chuck Martin, was a sponsor of the original bill, the bill, when it came before committee, was amended by Representative Tom Dixon to put a sunset for 4 years. The bill sunsetted. It was never repealed. It just sunset based upon what Representative Dixon put in at that particular time.
What was House Bill 1316 that went into effect on December 31st, 2010? Because that says that repealed this article.
I don't know. I can't answer that question either. I don't know.
One other question, 26, that's Representative Dixon.
Sure. Sure.
But I'll also ask you on page 2, beginning on line 49, talks about all high school athletic associations and states that cooperate with this bill. Do you have intentions of going out to the committees that are, I mean, there are several other athletic associations involving primarily the private schools. They would be included in this language.
And I guess when you said go after,
I don't mean go after.
yeah, because I was about to say I don't see it as, to me, and I know how some look at this because of some of the things that have taken place, that we're attacking them with this. I actually believe that we're not. I actually believe that it could be both good for us as well as Georgia High School, whether it be Georgia Independent School Association, whoever it may be, that be able to have this dialogue and debate to help to educate more so than sometimes we just hear what our coach or our athletic director or whatever may say, to poison the well, so to speak. And this gives them an opportunity within the public eye to be able to come in and defend or state their position or to educate as to why.
Let me rephrase what I said.
Sure.
Do you intend to review what is done by these other?
I think, well, one, I'm not sure that I'm going to be on here. Whoever may be on here, I think, excuse me, I think it would behoove them to bring them in, to say, how is this done within your organization? Those kind of things. The dialogue and debate that was had back in November, in my opinion, was good because there was the dialogue between these schools that were looking at leaving, and they had the discussions with the Georgia Independent School Association, and that discussion was had as to the way they may do things versus the way the Georgia High School Association may do things versus the way other organizations do things in other states around.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, at the appropriate time, I would offer the amendment to provide a sunset.
Any other questions? Any other questions? Now, understand, and the chairman is not here, but Representative Benton, I understand you were there. Did they have testimony in the committee?
They asked for it, and there was, the only people who gave testimony were Chairman Roberts.
But they had the opportunity, okay? I want to be sure. All right. At this time, I have, what I will do then, you want to say something before we? I have another comment, Representative Cassis.
Just one question, and just for a point of clarification. Chairman Roberts, on page 2, lines 27 and 30, I did read that part in line 25 where this committee will only review the operations of the High School Athletic Association. But then subparagraph B, in lines 27 through 30, say that no high school that participates in sports can't participate in an association if that association is not complying with this law. Mm-hmm. Okay, what would be the penalties for an association?
You know, this is the same language that was in the last one. This didn't change. And I'll go back to Justin Anderson. As we called him Bean, and at the time we called it the Bean Bill. We actually passed legislation that year that said if you are a public school and you participate in a private organization that does not sanction these all-star games according to NCAA guidelines, and I can't remember all the exacts, but basically you would lose your QBE funding formula from the state of Georgia.
Wow.
We passed that bill here in this body. You and I did, and the governor signed it into law. It passed both the House and the Senate. So that bill was passed, and it is now in current Georgia code.
Wow.
Okay. All right. What I need then, any other questions? All right, Representative Maxwell.
I'm just, Chairman Rogers, was this called the High School Athletics Overview Committee before? Do you know if this is a new name for it? Was that basically what it was called?
Yeah. Same name.
Okay. I'm just having a little heartburn with that overview. I don't know if that.
What I'm going to do then, I understand there is an amendment, but I'm going to have to get a motion for this bill in order to amend it. If I don't get a motion, I have a motion that we do pass this bill. I have a motion and a second. So any other discussion? So at this time, we are open for amendments. I have an amendment from, what's your, number 26? All right, Representative Dixon.
Would move to add, let's see where we go. After line 73.
I can't hear.
You turn me off again.
I know you're 26, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's why I got you. I wouldn't never turn you off. I tell you. All right. You're on, buddy. Go.
It's a bit of a turn off. To sunset after 4 years from the time it's signed by the government to the sunset.
All right. So where are you going to put that?
Beginning on line, would move, insert between 73 and 74, line 73 and 74.
All right. You got that, Abby and Courtney? That this would sunset.
4 years from the date that it's signed by the government.
All right. 4 years from the day it's signed by the governor.
Also, I would also add, I think that sunset would have taken care of anything that was in the previous, so any, the section you were talking about a minute ago.
It would sunset that also.
Would have sunsetted with the rest of that bill.
This doesn't have to be signed
The other section that he's talking about
by the governor.
20-2-316.1.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be signed by the
Say as passed through both bodies of the. Just say at the time it becomes law.
4 years from the time it becomes law.
All right. 4 years. So what we're going to insert between, you're saying between lines,
Between lines 73 and 74.
this legislation will sunset 4 years from the date signed into law. All right? No?
From the date it becomes
Becomes
from
law.
the time it becomes law.
From the date that time it becomes law. All right? That it becomes law. All right? That good? All right? Do we have you hear the amendment? Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. No. Where's? Let's record the no's. One no. Abby? All right, I assume the rest are yes. All right, do we have any other discussion before we take a vote? We have a motion on the floor that House Bill, listen now, House Bill 836 as amended. I have a do pass and a second. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand. All right, Abby, y'all count. All in favor, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6. All opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. 6 to 3. It does pass. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Senator, I'll be with you. I've got one more, and you're up. You're up next. All right, Representative Nix.
Yes, sir.
You want to present from your seat, or you want to come to the floor?
I probably better.
You better come to the floor. I have a feeling that you're going to be sparring.
More people better come with me. We're going to try to get this done while Representative Welch is out of the room.
This is House Bill 825 that we took up. Committee members, we took this up last time. 825. It's being handed out to you now. And I referred it back to the subcommittee to rework the bill. You know, there was an argument about the 90 days, so I referred it back to the subcommittee, and they did meet, and they've come out with a substitute. We're dealing with substitute LC 334626S. And before we go, we had a group walk here. Where y'all from?
Georgia Women for a Change.
From where?
Georgia Women for a Change.
Georgia Women for a Change. I like that name. Okay. All right. Wave your hands if you're the Georgia Women for a Change. Where are my Georgia men for staying the same? We're glad to have y'all with us. Thank y'all for coming. All right. Hey, I want y'all to talk to Randy said he wants y'all to talk to his wife. I got you in trouble. This is being broadcast, y'all do realize. Okay, Representative Nick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We
Pull
took,
your mic over to you.
Am I on?
Yeah, you're on.
We took the bill we worked on the other day and made an attempt to simplify what we're trying to accomplish. We rewrote the last sentence, and the attempt was to eliminate the thought that 90 days is how long you've got to appeal. The 90-day time frame is how long it has to be completed by the administrative law judge, by the court. And I had asked that we have someone come and walk through an actual case so we'd have a timeline on how these occur to hopefully make this a little bit more clear. We got hung up on the 90-day thing and what that actually meant. As I understand it, the way this has been interpreted, once a sanction is given to a teacher, then they have 30 days in which they can appeal that. If they do not appeal the 31st day, then they have accepted it. It does not change. But if they do appeal in that 30-day time frame, that starts a new time clock, and then at the end of 90 days, it would have to be completely acted upon by the administrative law judge. So the 90-day time frame meant that it would have to be completed in 90 days. The problem is many of these become, many of these are given to the district attorney for investigation. When the district attorney gets it, he has no time frame in which he must act. So we get to the point where the commission cannot do its work. They cannot get ahead of that criminal investigation with their administrative investigation. So we're trying to just say that 90-day time frame is not a limiting factor, that they could go past that 90 days in order to be able to act on that teacher and on their certification, if indeed they need to. So this is just trying to clear up that time frame so that they at the end of that 90 days they don't have to have it completed. That's the way I understand it, and I would like to ask Mr. Henson and the Attorney General's representative to maybe walk you through a time. I thought it might be best to just get a real life.
All right, y'all do it. I'll let turn it over to him and just walk through it in a real live situation. Names have been changed to protect the innocent. All right.
They've actually been left out. But I'll cover a couple of things. And first, I want to apologize for kind of doing an inadequate job last week. We're gonna do a better job today explaining this to you. And as previously stated, the request that we were making removes the requirement that ethics cases where a student alleges inappropriate behavior by a teacher be heard by an administrative law judge within 90 days. This is problematic because all of these cases involve potential criminal behavior and evidentiary files are not released to us prior to the criminal investigation being completed. I want to answer a couple of your specific questions from last week, and then I'll walk you through a case that is currently before the Commission. A specific item from last week is that the existing statute can be interpreted in two ways. That is absolutely true. It can be interpreted that the 90 days speaks to the time the educator has to decide on whether or not to appeal a Commission sanction. Or it can be interpreted that the 90 days speaks to the time in which a hearing must be held by an administrative law judge. While the statute can be read either way, what I think is important for our discussion today is that the Attorney General's office has interpreted the statute to mean that a hearing before an administrative law judge must be held within 90 days. And the Attorney General's office feels very strongly that this is the interpretation that would be forthcoming from a judge should the matter go to a judge. So for our purposes today, I would ask you to interpret the existing statute as requiring a hearing before an administrative law judge within 90 days. Another question from last week was, what impact does this change have on the APS testing cases? And the answer to that simply is none. Passage of House Bill 825 or your failure to pass it will neither speed up nor slow down the work on those cases. Now, I am absolutely available to come to this committee and discuss those cases with you at your convenience for as long as you wish. But in terms of our dialogue and discussion and deliberation on this bill, the APS cases really don't come into play in any way. And then a third question from last week was how long an educator has to decide whether or not to appeal a decision. The answer is 30 days, and that is in PSC rule. This change in no way requests that 30 days be changed, And quite honestly, I've talked to Page officials, GAE officials, and others, and no one feels that any educator's rights are being abridged with their 30-day rule that's currently in PSC rule. Now for a specific example. The PSC has received a complaint alleging that an educator molested a minor. The PSC opened an investigation and found that the school district had spoken to the victim and the victim's family. They told the victim and the victim's family told the system investigator that this educator had had a sexual relationship with this 14-year-old student, that the educator had sent the 14-year-old sexually explicit text messages, Facebook messages, and also nude photographs. The parents said that their child had stated on numerous occasions that he wanted to commit suicide over this matter and he needed help. The district attorney is moving to prosecute this educator, but that does take some time. All recorded statements, all text messages, all photographs are in the criminal file. If a hearing before an administrative law judge were required prior to release of the criminal file to us, we would essentially have no evidence. We would have no statements, no texts, no Facebook information, no photographs. We would only have the hearsay evidence of the district official that spoke to the family. While it is possible for us to call the victim to testify, this would impede the criminal case and allow the attorney for the educator to view the victim's testimony prior to the criminal case, and if I'm correct, also it would allow the other attorney to cross-examine the victim. The end result would be that we would lose the hearing and, if convicted, we would have a convicted child molester with a teaching certificate. This case is currently active, and we are waiting on the file to be released to us by the district attorney. If the educator's attorney challenges us based on the 90-day rule, we will likely lose this case. So that takes you through a case, and it's one of several that we currently have before us that is in fact impacted by the rule that we're discussing today. And Senior Deputy Attorney General Ritter and myself are here to answer your questions.
All right, any questions? Good job.
Better than last week.
17, Representative Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Obviously, when you talk about real people, it helps you to understand what we're talking about here. So I'm just curious, in this situation, is this teacher still teaching at the moment?
No.
So what happened in this kind of situation where allegations are made but there's not a criminal case?
One of several things can happen. The district can suspend the educator pending a termination hearing. If, in fact, the school district does have enough evidence without the release of those files, they can go forward with a due process hearing. But my understanding is the educator in this case is not teaching at this time.
And is that generally what happens?
It is generally what happens, and almost always what happens when it comes to cases of sexual misconduct. But unfortunately, it frequently happens at the expense of the school district because after a certain period of time, suspensions are with pay.
Thank you.
Representative Dudgeons?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just walking in late, had another committee meeting, and I promised not to open up the can of worms like
you heard that
last
explanation,
week.
though, didn't you? That was a good one. All right.
80% of it.
Okay, we'll turn his mic off.
I promise not to open the can of worms, and even if I don't get the answer I want, I'm going to leave it alone. But I'm just going to try it. It said the old language was 90 days of a sanction. So in the situation described, you've got a teacher who's suspended with pay or has some sort of preliminary sanction. Then we go through the whole process, and then there's a final hearing after the DA has released the evidence, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess what the interpretation was causing problems is that this 90 days was kicking in at the beginning of that initial sanction of like suspension as opposed to the final one, which is what was causing the 90-day clock to trigger. Is that correct?
I believe the language in existing code, and I've got it here, but relative to get it, does say something along the lines of the 90 days kicks in when our commission does initiate the initial sanction.
Yeah, and I think that was a problem.
And then we have 90 days to get it before an administrative law judge.
Yeah.
And almost all of these cases under this code section are cases of abuse, molestation. They are very high-level cases. We're not talking about low-level cases.
That's good. All right. I have no more questions. Do I have a motion? I have a move that we pass. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. All opposed, like sign. Thank you. All right. Good.
What a difference a week, man.
Hey, cool. I tell you.
It's just
Didn't lose much skin.
It's just because
Senator, we want to
our
apologize
attorneys
to you because we
and
usually treat our visitors a little much better. I want to tell you, come on up, Senator. Senator canceled a meeting. He was going down speaking to thousands and thousands of people tonight. And no, he canceled to be here because I told him, he asked me would I carry his bill. I said, you don't want me to carry it. And so, Senator, if you would, we're looking at Senate Bill 219.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Appreciate you taking up this bill in the first place, and I'm more than honored to stay here and try to explain this bill to you.
Senator, this came out of academic support. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Randy, what was your recommendation for this bill? Do pass?
It was a do pass. I'm sorry.
Unanimous? Yes. Okay. Go ahead, Chair. Go ahead, Mr. Senator.
Thank you very much. By way of explanation, the history of this bill, we passed this bill at least 2 times unanimously in both chambers, and one time there was one dissenting vote in the House, I believe. And we brought it up because we were contacted by several people from the military base at Fort Benning and other military installations, and Kevin Birch with the Secretary of Defense office, who approached us to bring forth this legislation because of the plight of young children who attend schools and they go from one state to the other. We learned that in the course of a child's career from K through 12th grade, they may go from one school district to another school district from 6 to 9 times. They have that many changes. So this is an effort to make that a bit smoother, especially in light of the fact that their parents are fighting our wars and they are our heroes. And I think the last thing they need is another thing to deal with. The compact is designed to bring states together to allow the uniform treatment of military children who transfer between school districts and states. While states may already support military children, individual states can only control what happens inside their borders. This compact allows for cooperation and uniform treatment of all member states. As it relates to the number of children in our state, I think it's about 42,000 children who are military children in our state. The charges and fees for this would be $1 per child. To be a member of this compact would be that figure. And in addition to that, it would never go beyond $60,000 a year. And if there are no other questions,
we're going to get to questions now.
I'm ready for it.
All right, number 25. That's Representative Benton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator, a couple of questions.
Yes.
You partially answered one of them for me about the fee.
Yes, sir.
It's $1 a child.
Yes, sir.
But it can never go up past $60,000.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Now that is. Wait a minute. This was information provided to me by Mr. Kevin Brush, and I don't have it readily available. But that is the rule. It cannot go beyond $60,000. That's per the rulemaking of the commission.
So that's in our budget somewhere. If we do, that would have to come out of general funds, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The second question I have deals with the compact itself. At any point, would the compact's ruling supersede Georgia law?
Absolutely not, sir. Absolutely not. It can't do that. As a matter of fact, it facilitates our laws. And as it relates to the oversight, the Supreme Court, the 3 branches of government, oversights this committee. It says specifically that in the legislation.
Okay, so there's no way that what we're doing here in Georgia could be superseded by the compact?
No, sir. Absolutely not.
Okay, thank you.
All right, number 9, Representative Dudgeons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a follow-up to Representative Benton's question. I have the same concern, and if I'm looking at line 513 through 515 on page 16, it says the provisions of this compact and rules promulgated under shall have the standing of statutory law, and above that it says the executive judicial shall enforce it. So I hope it does say somewhere that if there's a conflict that the state wins the conflict. But actually I think, to be honest with you, I think the whole point of this compact is that the state is sort of agreeing in this area of the law of military kids that we are going to just sort of take the Georgia law aside and say that we're all going to do it this way, and that's the whole point. The whole point, I guess, is that every state treats the military kids exactly the same.
That's where I read it, that whatever the state has, we're all going to go with what the federal law says for the military. That's what I read. Is that right?
I believe so.
Not federal law, no, sir.
No,
well, this law, this compact.
Yes, sir.
This compact.
Right.
The compact
This
law.
compact.
Excuse me, the compact law.
And the rules that come out of it.
All right, Representative Ash.
Well, I need help on the very last page, line 649 through 650.
649.
It says all member states' laws conflicting with this compact are superseded to the extent of the conflict.
Yeah.
I think that's what Representative Benton was worried about, and that concerns me a lot.
What was the line?
It's 649 on the very
all member
last
states'
page.
laws conflicting with this compact are superseded to the extent of the conflict.
Representation.
And you read that to say what now?
I read that to say that if our law, this section we put in several years ago, is in conflict with this compact, the compact wins.
No, ma'am.
And that's what I was interpreting Representative Dudgeon to ask and say
that
that
doesn't
this
mean that.
compact takes precedence over any state's laws. That's what you were saying, wasn't it? It's clear.
I think that's pretty clear. Tell me why it's not.
It is my understanding, and I don't have that in front of me right now, and I can't get my hand on it right now.
You did?
No, I got that.
Okay.
I got that. The information that would explain it, but my understanding is that once you become a member of the compact, and if there's any kind of conflict, the states would settle it among the compact members, not something that would be against the laws of the compact itself. The idea of the compact is for the states to come together to agree in a casual manner as opposed to being subjected to federal law or a national law that would compel them to do it. They would have this particular compact. We have several compacts in our states already. Juvenile, water compacts. We have about 19 or 20 compacts, as a matter of fact. So we're members of the compacts already.
Well, if I may follow up
Yes, ma'am.
just a bit, on page 11, line 363, talks about the powers of this commission, and one of them is to provide for dispute resolution among member states. And then it goes on and says that they can create rules and
Take action.
Yeah, and take actions. I'm concerned that we have we really spent a long time on Article 35, the military dependence legislation in Georgia, and I quite frankly have not had time to go through it to see if there are places where this disagrees. But I'd sort of like to know that before I vote.
Yeah. All right, let's take a couple more questions. Representative Maxwell, and then over to...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Senator, appreciate you bringing this. Now, I do have a couple of questions also. Is this exactly the same bill that was passed out several times before, or do you know what changes?
Exactly, yes, sir.
It was last year, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And it got to rules?
And it has passed twice. This is the third time. And I explained what the deal is. The first time it passed, I believe there was a veto by the governor after it passed the House and the Senate. The second time it passed unanimously in both chambers. And this time is the third time we bring the cause. This would be the third time.
I have a couple of same concerns, sir. On page 12, at the top of the page, lines 364, 65, it says, and you go back over to the other page.
What was the first lines again, sir?
Top of the page, bottom of page 11, it says the Interstate Commission shall have the following powers to provide for dispute resolution among member states. And then on top of page 12, it says to promulgate rules and take all necessary actions to effect those purposes, The rules shall have the force and effect of statutory law. and shall be binding in the compact states to the extent and in the matter provided in this compact. So that's, I'm just surprised we got that out of here like that before, to be honest with you. And another question on page 18, line 581, the Interstate Commission may levy on and collect an annual assessment from each member state to cover the cost of the operations. I guess that's where you was referring to the money.
Yes, sir.
And activities in the Interstate Commission. Line 585 says the amount shall be allocated based upon a formula determined by the Interstate Commission.
And that's the $42,000.
We just don't see it says a formula, but we don't know what the dollar amount of that formula may be or the percentage.
The formula is $1 per child, and it says something here in the legislation. It specifically says that.
It says it in the statute. I just couldn't find where it
Yes,
said
sir.
a dollar anywhere.
I can't find it.
Cut us all off.
Where is the dollar? That's what I'm talking about. The dollar comment and the formula. Okay.
The dollar is?
I see that.
Yeah, the
but it
ability.
does say,
but
yeah.
the ability is what I was reading, but I didn't see what the fee
But I don't
might
see the
be.
amount. Do you, Representative Ash? That's why Kansas City was getting the dollar and the 60,000 maximum.
586, yes. Right. Because promulgated by a rule, so whatever the rule is what they'd have to pay.
Senator, let us take a couple more questions, and then Representative Morgan, and then y'all let some look.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator, thank you for bringing this bill. I understand the concerns of some of my colleagues, but I guess I thought it was important to point out that it would make sense for our laws to be superseded in this compact. But first, let me ask you this question. How many states are involved in this compact already?
40.
40.
Yes.
Okay, so there are 10 of us who are still
That's
not
right.
treating military
And Georgia is the
students
largest
same.
state which is not a member of the compact.
Okay.
And
I think
Senator, what
that's-
is that? What is, to go along with what, let you go ahead, but what is the agency that's been calling, constantly monitoring this? Where in Washington, there's a group. What is that group?
It's an honor group of the Secretary of Defense Office.
Okay,
headed up
that's
by
right.
Mr.
That's
Kevin
who's been
Brett.
calling and
And if
monitoring.
I didn't anticipate some of the questions, I would have had them come.
All right,
They came
go
down yesterday, and I didn't want them to have to travel
Have to
back
come
from
back,
Washington
right.
twice. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Representative Morgan, go ahead.
So the point that I was making is, again, I understand some of the concerns, but it makes sense that, for example, when you're talking about enrollment documents, if you have a family that's moving here from a different state, they may not be able to get all of the documents that they need at one time to enroll that student. So to allow that student to get into school based on unofficial records at first, and then based on this compact, give them time to be able to get those documents from the other state. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, our Office of Superintendents of Schools here, they already do a lot of these things. This just simply put it in law. That's all.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing this bill.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. What is this on? His subject. You know, Senator, of course, we don't have to be in a hurry with Senate bills, but because we got till after because you've already crossed over, thank Lord. You're over Jordan. You're over Jordan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, I want to send this back to Representative Nix. And Representative Ash, you on his subcommittee? Are you, Representative Morgan? You are? All right, I'm going to ask Representative Carter and Representative Ash. Who else is on that sub? You are? If y'all will get with him and because I think the Defense Department has called me, and the intent is fantastic. You know, take care of these children, get them in school, don't hassle them, don't make them wait till the records get there, get the records there quick. And I'm going to ask y'all to do it. And in our next meeting, let's move it. Let's look at moving it. So if you don't, I'm going to move it back to subcommittee, ask Representative Nix to do that. That's what I'm just going to do, taking chairman's privilege, moving it back, asking the three of y'all to work with the senator, and then we'll get with Representative Nix and bring it out. Anything else you want to say? Representative Casas?
Just a suggestion, Mr. Chairman, and
Yeah,
and you certainly
go ahead.
may do it that way, but I wonder if it would be better to keep it here in the full committee, but ask the Department of Defense to come.
Hey, that's not. Well, let's do this. let's keep it in full committee. That's fine. But I still want the three of them to get with him, get with the senator to be sure they dissected it, looked at it. And next time, let's have the gentleman from the Department of Defense that's called me several times.
I will have him
and
here,
have
sir.
him
Thank you.
And we'll let you know. We'll give you a week's notice.
All right, sir.
That'll
Thank
be good. Is that agreeable to the author? Representative Ash, Representative Carter, Representative. Are you ready? So let's do that. Still dissect it. We'll keep it in the bosom of this committee then.
All right, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your consideration.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. We always save the best for last. My favorite person and the great representative from the great county of Gwinnett, Representative Mitchell. All right.
That may appear in a brochure one day.
Well, he's a little bit of DeKalb, but no.
We are multi-faceted. Okay. Mr. Chairman, thank you so very much. And ladies and gentlemen of the committee, I present before you House Bill 692, brilliant piece of legislation, I might add. The fact of the matter is what has been lost in the falsification of standardized test scores scandal is that there were incentive pay as well as bonuses specifically for certain achievement on standardized test achievement. This bill simply provides a mechanism for the local school boards to retrieve only the monies for the bonuses and the incentive pays that came about as a result of the standardized test score achievement. If a professional admits or is subsequently adjudicated to have falsified test scores, then the taxpayer dollars can be returned back to the school system. I might say that I have documents from the Federation of Teachers as well as GAE, who both, as some of you know, support this legislation.
So what this is saying is your pay for performance is returned if you're found that you got it in an illegal way.
That is correct.
That's what you're saying. All right, any questions from Representative Mitchell? Any questions? All right, Representative Maxwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Representative Mitchell, appreciate this. Now, are we going to go back retroactively?
There's been a lot of debate as to whether you can. What is a fact is that, as a matter of fact, the local school district has just started the process. Once a professional has already been adjudicated through it, in my estimation, it might be difficult. But very few have already gone through the adjudication process. Some have just been notified that they will be. The fact is this would be part of that process.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And in no way does a 90-day affect this.
No, this does not.
Representative Morgan.
And I'd add, Mr. Chairman, let me just say as well for any professionals that are interested, this does not even affect their present due process rights that this class of professionals presently enjoy.
Okay. Representative Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative, I just need some clarification. On line 29, it's talking about falsifying test scores, and I'm confused. Maybe I'm not reading well today. When a student, so the problem that we all know about, was that specifically falsifying the scores, or was it falsifying the answers that led to the scores?
That would be, this bill contemplates that being one in the same. If the teacher knew that, if the teacher assisted in the falsification or knew that the others were falsifying the test scores, and then there's a simultaneous action that must happen, and then that teacher who knew or caused the falsification received a bonus or incentive as a result of the higher test scores, then it would have to be returned.
Okay, so let me ask a follow-up, because I heard what you said, but I'm still not clear. You're talking about falsifying test scores. I'm talking about falsifying actual tests. So there were people who went in and actually changed tests that then changed the scores. But this speaks to changing the test scores and not the actual tests.
In my mind, this is one and the same, because if you falsified the test and the test was changed such that the professional received a performance bonus. Let's say they changed the test scores and they received a performance bonus, then therefore that bonus would have to be returned.
Okay?
Yeah, that's.
Is that all right? All right.
Let my chairman over here explain what I'm trying to say.
All right. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And then I have 23, then 1.
So, Representative, I think the question really is just a matter of wording because, in fact, teachers weren't actually falsifying scores, test scores. They were falsifying test answers. That somebody else actually scored it, and so somebody could be falsifying the scores themselves, but that wasn't happening at the teacher level. So I think this suggestion is just to change the word test scores with test answers, and it actually addresses exactly what the teachers have been accused of doing. And I understand you think scores and answers are the same, but I don't think they are.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, they could have falsified the answers, just hypothetically stating, but the test did not rise to a level by which they received a bonus or an incentive pay, and this bill does not address that. But, Mr. Chairman, for the sake of the committee, I can accept that amendment.
All right, well, it's just more discussion. All right, then we come to 1. 23, that's Representative Maxwell.
Well, I was reading this on line 34 that says on the results of falsified student assessments or falsified standardized test scores. Maybe we need to add that back up there to make line 29
That's
clear.
exactly.
I don't know, but that's, to me, it pretty much covers it down there.
I agree with you.
Would that take care of yours, Representative Thomas?
I agree with you, Chairman Maxwell. Brilliant mind that you have.
Just add both, that's at both places.
If that's what's...
Is that what you're talking about, Representative Thomas? Would that do it? All right. Representative Ash?
Let me be sure that I understand this. Teachers or other certified personnel, so it could be a principal, it could be an assistant superintendent, it could be a superintendent who would lose the salary increase or the bonus that came because of the falsification of an answer sheet. The system itself, if it's received a bonus under No Child Left Behind, does it forfeit that bonus as well?
This bill does not contemplate that situation.
So this doesn't deal with the system, but it deals with all the professionals within the system.
Representative Ash, I think in a couple of those cases that the feds asked for the money back, didn't they?
I think they did, and so...
Yeah. So they got theirs back.
They got theirs back.
I will say what precipitated as well, we had some local school boards that said that, there were districts that gave $500 bonuses and the like, and they said to go after the teachers for $500, even if they admitted it would not be worth it to the district. It would cost them much more than $500 to pursue.
While we're on this, let's say the superintendent of a certain city we know of right now is gone, and the trial hasn't been decided, but if they decide that maybe this superintendent knowingly, of course, did not do any of it, but knew it and accepted the bonus knowing there's a problem, lose theirs also, right?
That is correct. If that professional
That's in
admitted
here.
to,
Yeah.
or
well, they never admitted, but they found it was cheating.
or
They
it
could
was
go,
subsequently proven that they
could go
knew,
after it, yeah.
then they can go after that.
Now, I heard you say GAE and AFT. How about Page?
To be honest with you, we had a conversation, brief
They're saying they
conversation.
agree.
Yeah.
Is that correct? Is that a yes? They agree.
We believe in giving the employees a full due process hearing.
Yeah. But if they're convicted, you say, yeah, go after it.
Yeah, and let me emphasize that again, that this bill no way interrupts the present due process that this class of professionals enjoy.
What you're simply saying is after all is done, said and done, once the decision has been made, if they are guilty, we go after it.
The taxpayer dollars are returned.
If they can.
What about the money they get for being a science teacher? Is that considered a bonus, Or a salary increase?
No, we're talking about bonus.
That is
and
a bonus, but I
pay.
don't think it's part of this.
Incentive pay
But it could be.
related to standardized test
It could
score
be.
achievement.
It could be because that's a bonus.
But not related, that wouldn't be related to standardized test
Even
score
master
achievement.
teachers, I mean national board, even national board could be. But
That's
it's
not in
part
this
of it.
board. This is only directly related to the
standard-
test.
But it's not related to test. That's the thing.
Right.
But if they, all right. Any other questions? All right. You've heard it. I have no further questions. Do I have a motion? I have a motion to pass. Do I pass? Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye. Oh, no, Anna. Second. Let's go back. Do I have a motion to approve as amended? Now, where was the amendment? You're moving line, Howard, where was your amendment? I know, but let's use your line you were talking about. It was
line 34.
We're talking about putting line 34, where now, Brian? Up there on, let's get this right.
Well, now line 28 says which includes student assessment results.
Uh-huh.
I think it's...
So it may be in there. Do we think so?
It's still talking about the results and not the actual answers.
Uh-huh.
Where is Betsy when you need her?
I'll tell you where Betsy is. Betsy is in another lengthy meeting.
It's superfluous, I believe, but...
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make a stab at it.
All right, if you would, go ahead. I will take your stab. All right, Abby, be sure you and Courtney get this down, all right? Representative Thomas?
I'm going to suggest that at the end of line 28, we insert a comma after results, and then delete the word or, and it will continue to read standardized test scores, comma, or standardized test answers.
Standardized test answers that were falsified by such teachers.
I believe
And
that
that's the only
captures
change we're talking about. Leave the line 34 alone.
And then everything else would remain.
Does everybody understand, agree with that? All right, I have a motion to amend that, and what we're doing is after...
Mr. Chairman?
Hold it, time. I'm going.
I think that same wording, I think I'm correct, that you would have to add it to line 34 also.
Oh, so that's what I was thinking. Yeah, that's what I was asking. Would we?
Yes.
So I was going to read it.
Right.
Test scores are. All right. Here's how it would read. All right, Representative Thomas, read it to us. On line 28, after results, a comma. So, all right. there you go.
We'd add a comma after results at the end of line 28. At the beginning of line 29, strike or. It would then continue to read standardized test scores, insert comma, and the words or standardized test scores.
Test.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Test
standardized
answers.
test answers.
Yeah.
And then on line 34, after assessments, add a comma, delete the word or, and it would continue to read falsified standardized test scores, and then add a comma or standardized test answers.
There you go. Everybody got that? Everybody in agreement? All right. Now, do I have a motion to approve House Bill 692 as amended? I need a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All right. Any other further discussion? All right. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. All right. Now, if y'all would see that gets to Betsy and we get this drafted, and we'll move it to rules after that.
And she may have, I would say if she's got a couple of little tweaks in there.
That's what I would, yeah, I agree. I agree. If she thinks it would look better with the
different legal
legalese,
styling.
jargonese, whatever. Do y'all agree with that?
Yes.
All right. Okay, because I'm sure Representative Thomas is with the learned attorney also that he could do that. Not me though. All right. Any other questions, anything for the order? I appreciate it.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Chair.
Hold it just a second. One other thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good job, Representative. Good job, Representative Mitchell. All right, we have some bills to be assigned. Okay, Representative Casas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The following bills need to be assigned to subcommittee. House Bill 992 by Representative Jay Neal. This is a bill to require that the mandatory age for education be increased to 18 years of age. And it will be assigned to academic achievement and curriculum. Academic achievement. House Bill 1045 by Ben Harbin. This bill is about coaches having to receive safety courses. That bill is being assigned to academic support. Academic support. House Resolution 1519 by Representative Ash, proposing the creation of Joint Early Learning Study Committee. This will be assigned to academic achievement and curriculum. House Resolution 1521 by Representative Taylor, proposing an amendment to the Constitution to authorize the creation of alternate authorizers. This is academic innovations. Academic innovations. And Senate Bill 227 by Senator Loudermilk. This is declarations of intent and attendance records for home study programs that will be assigned to academic achievement and curriculum. Academic achievement. And that's it, Mr. Chairman.
As all of you know, and as such a small group here now, we are in the home stretch, so we're going to try to get our House bills moved. We've got to get it done as quickly as possible, and then we'll start taking up some Senate bills after that. But Kelly, we want to thank you for coming, and appreciate that so much. And anybody have anything? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you.